From nearly burning down his entire house to getting chased by a tiger, these are the moments IShowSpeed came dangerously close to losing his life. And let's start with the time he literally almost lost his life. In July 2023, IShowSpeed uploaded a video sharing that he was in serious pain. The pain got so bad he couldn't even open his eyes.
Yo guys, I can't even open up my eyes. I have this thing called a cluster headache right now.
Which meant streaming was completely off the table, and things only got worse from there. While he was in Japan, just 3 days into the trip, he ended up in the hospital. The headaches ended up being from a bad sinus infection. It wasn't life-threatening, but the pain had him thinking it was something way worse. Still, even while stuck in the hospital, Speed hit a huge milestone: 19 million subscribers. His cameraman, known online as Slipper, gave fans regular updates, and Speed himself eventually started getting better. Fans were relieved to see him recovering, and true to his nature, it didn't take long before he was back chasing outrageous challenges on stream. By March 2024, Speed found himself in another viral moment. After seeing a creator eat what looked like bars of soap for an ASMR challenge, he decided to try it himself. Live on stream, he grabbed several bars, took a massive bite, and chewed as if it were food.
First one, let's go. Oh fucking god. Oh god, this is disgusting. Oh my fucking god, it's so disgusting.
The twist? The original video that inspired him wasn't soap at all, it was chocolate. When he realized the mistake, he was horrified, and fans couldn't believe he had actually gone through with it. But that wasn't the only time he got caught up in something extreme. During a trip to Brazil, Speed live-streamed a walk through a favela. What started as content turned into a terrifying experience when armed men confronted him.
Relax, tranquilo.
They shoved him up against a wall, made him sit down, and left him rattled. But right when it felt like things were about to get out of hand, the truth dropped. It was all just a prank. But not long after, Speed's run-ins with danger would take him somewhere pranks couldn't explain away. Ferenteri, a neighborhood in Romania, has a rough reputation with nearly 17,000 crimes reported each year. Locals usually warn outsiders to stay away, but Speed still showed up, and the welcome he got wasn't friendly at all.
We turning up in Romania. We getting lit in What the f?
And as wild as those moments sound, his adventures didn't stop there. In fact, they only grew more unbelievable, because not long after, IShowSpeed managed to get his hands on something that looked like it belonged in a video game: a flame-throwing robot dog. In September 2024, IShowSpeed made headlines when he unveiled a flame-throwing robot dog. The machine was based on the go-to model from Chinese robotics company Unitree, but Speed claimed he had it specially shipped in from China for around $100,000. At first, the new purchase looked like an incredible piece of tech. Speed showed it off live, commanding it to sit, shake paws, and even follow him after a backflip. Everything went smoothly until he told the dog to bark. Instead of making a sound, the robot's jaw dropped open and launched a huge burst of fire straight at him. Standing by his pool, Speed quickly dove into the water before things could get any worse. And honestly, this wasn't the first time one of his wild experiments spun out of control. Not long before, Speed tried the classic elephant toothpaste challenge, a chemistry experiment mixing hydrogen peroxide, yeast, and dish soap to create massive foam eruptions. While it's a fun science demo, it carries real risks: burns, fumes, and even explosions if handled carelessly. For Speed, it went badly wrong. Smoke filled his room, leaving him struggling to breathe before his cameraman Slips reassured fans that he was taken care of. But in true Speed fashion, he didn't stop there. During his Euro 2024 trip through Europe, he revisited the challenge at Technopolis, a technology education center in Belgium. Even with an instructor supervising, he ignored warnings to step back and wasn't wearing any real protective gear. The foam shot out, and some of it landed on him, nearly burning his skin. And then came July 4th. For Independence Day, Speed decided to light a Pikachu-themed firework inside his bedroom while streaming. Despite warnings from his chat to take it outside, he placed it on his bed and set it off. At first, it looked like a simple fountain firework, sparks shooting from Pikachu's head, but then it spun out of control, spitting sparks from multiple holes and bouncing across the carpet. Shirtless, with other fireworks nearby, Speed panicked, shouting for his mom as smoke filled the room. The firework eventually burned out, but not before leaving the room clouded with smoke and his mom furious as she rushed in. Moments later, the fire department showed up at the house. For most people, a visit from firefighters would be more than enough. But for IShowSpeed, things escalated even further. Not long after, he faced something far scarier than a prank or a fire gone wrong. His first real SWAT visit. You see, some people out there get their kicks by pulling a dangerous prank on streamers, and it's called swatting. For those unfamiliar, swatting is when someone makes a fake call to emergency services, usually the police, and gives them the address of an unsuspecting victim. The result, a group of heavily armed officers showing up at the target's door. IShowSpeed has faced this more than once. In one of the most serious cases, the prank actually landed him in jail. His bail was set at $20,000, and he might have been stuck behind bars for much longer if fellow streamer Adin Ross hadn't stepped in to help. That was the most expensive swatting incident he's had to deal with, but far from the only one. On another stream, his viewers watched it unfold live. Speed's expression quickly shifted from confusion to alarm as he realized what was happening. When it was over, he didn't hold back on calling out the person responsible. This was just another reminder of how extreme some fans can get when it comes to streamers. And for Speed, those run-ins sometimes even get physical. That's exactly what went down in 2023 when Speed, who's a diehard Manchester United fan, was live at Wembley Stadium during a fiery match against Manchester City. In the 26th minute, he realized the fan sitting in front of him was a City supporter. The shouting started and tensions boiled over when the man knocked Speed's phone out of his hand. Security quickly stepped in after a scuffle broke out, wrestling the fan to the ground. But just 2 years later, Speed found himself in an entirely different kind of fight, this time inside a wrestling ring. At the 2025 Royal Rumble, he received a personal invitation from Triple H himself. Speed spent the night joking around backstage with WWE superstars, even sharing a moment with John Cena. But when Triple H suddenly called on him to step in as a surprise entrant, the crowd inside Lucas Oil Stadium erupted. At first, Speed held his own. He even helped Braun Breaker eliminate Otis, but the excitement didn't last long. Moments later, he took a brutal hit that left him badly hurt. He got stretchered out of the arena, neck brace strapped on, and hobbled backstage with a bad leg wound as proof of the beating he'd just taken. But truth be told, dealing with painful injuries was nothing new for him. While traveling through Europe, Speed came across the Anastaneria, an ancient ritual in northern Greece and southern Bulgaria where people walk barefoot over burning coals while dancing. By the 20th century, it had turned into more of a tourist attraction, and instead of just watching, Speed decided to jump in and take part himself. Unsurprisingly, he left with burns as a reminder of the experience. But even that didn't slow him down. After finishing up his time in Europe, IShowSpeed headed over to Southeast Asia in 2024, starting off in Thailand. On September 9th, he went live, and things got wild pretty fast. At first, everything seemed chill. Speed was hanging out with some locals who introduced him to an elephant. He spent a little time getting comfortable with it before hopping on for a ride. But that's when things went sideways. Luckily, his people were close enough to catch him, preventing what could have been a dangerous fall. But the next challenge in Thailand was something no bodyguard could stop. Speed got behind the wheel of a tuk-tuk, those three-wheeled taxis you see everywhere in the country. But the fun didn't last long. He slammed the gas a little too hard and ended up crashing the whole thing straight into a wall. The hit left him dazed, his head bouncing off the tuk-tuk's roof. But the madness didn't stop there. Later on, Speed made his way to a tiger jungle where he got way too close to the big cats with nothing but a metal ball in his hand. Suddenly, one of the tigers lunged straight at him and handlers had to jump in fast. After nearly 3 life-threatening incidents in one country, it seemed Thailand had tested him enough, but Speed would soon name a completely different place as his worst experience. That title went to Norway. After leaving Sweden and going live in Norway, he was instantly mobbed by huge crowds of fans. Things got out of hand fast, and while trying to hype everyone up from his hotel window, he ended up twisting his ankle. The injury left him barely able to walk, so a man in a suit had to carry him out to a waiting car. But when he tried to leave the hotel, the crowd was so intense that even a fan managed to snatch a piece of his hair in the process. The escape was chaotic, and afterwards Speed took to X, declaring he would never return to Norway. But Australia didn't treat him much better. When he kicked things off in Sydney, the crowd swarmed him all over again. Trying to get away, he made his way to Watson's Bay and decided to pull off a stunt, a backflip into the harbor. But that flip didn't land the way he hoped. Struggling in the water and unable to swim, he had no choice but to call for help. But wild stunts like this weren't anything new for Speed. Back in 2022, he even tried the infamous vacuum challenge at home. The challenge is all about climbing into a plastic bag and having the air sucked out with a vacuum. On his first try, Speed ended up flat on the ground, completely stuck and unable to move. But that didn't stop him. He went right back and tried it again. The second time, he got stuck all over again, but luckily his younger brother Jerome happened to walk by and pulled him out. But danger followed him again in 2023. On March 21st, after a lighthearted Just Chatting stream, he switched things up with some live bench pressing. At first, the workout seemed easy, but when he raised the weight, the bar nearly crushed him. He managed to escape injury, but the scare didn't slow him down. By November 2024, Speed decided to attempt a backflip that almost took his neck out. But for our final moment in this video, it was Speed who stepped in and saved someone from nearly taking her own life.